The idea for Back to the Future was born in Bob Gale's family home, while he was digging through some old boxes in the basement. He found his father's old high school yearbook and wondered, if we had met when we were both 17, would we have been friends? He shared this idea with Robert Zemeckis, and together they built the story around three main ideas. A teenager travels back in time, meets his parents, and his mother accidentally falls in love with him. Over time, this concept developed into a full screenplay. Intrigued by the idea, Columbia Pictures asked Zemeckis and Gale to write a script. They did, but Columbia rejected it. The two then sent the screenplay to their close friend Steven Spielberg. Spielberg loved it and said, "It's such an unusual story, but it's built on timeless themes: family, growing pains, dreams, desires, and the generation gap. It's truly wonderful." Spielberg wanted his production company, Amblin Entertainment, to make the movie, but Zemeckis and Gale didn't want to be known as people who only got work through Spielberg. So they sent the script to every studio in Hollywood. Back to the Future was rejected 44 times. Columbia thought it was too sweet. Universal said time travel movies don't make money, and Disney called it too incestuous. One big reason it was so hard to get the movie made was that Zemeckis wasn't a famous director at the time. His previous film, Used Cars, had flopped. His mentor, Steven Spielberg, advised him to direct a studio movie first so that he could earn trust again. Zemeckis then directed Romancing the Stone, which became a major hit. After that, making Back to the Future became much easier. The movie flows so smoothly that it feels like it was written in one sitting, but in reality, the script went through countless changes. For example, Marty's last name in the first drafts wasn't McFly, it was McDermott. And Doc Brown's pet wasn't a dog, it was a chimpanzee named Shemp. But Universal's president, Sid Sheinberg, objected, saying, "No movie with a chimpanzee ever makes money." Gale replied, "What about Every Which Way But Loose?" And Sheinberg shot back, "That was an orangutan, not a chimp." The DeLorean car became legendary because of the film, but originally, the time machine wasn't a car at all. The first draft featured a time room that Marty would step into to travel back. Later, it became a massive 1950s-style refrigerator. However, Spielberg and Zemeckis feared that kids might crawl into their own fridges trying to imitate the movie, so they scrapped the idea. Zemeckis thought making the time machine mobile would add excitement, and they started looking for something that looked futuristic. That's how the DeLorean entered the picture. After the film's success, John DeLorean, the CEO of the DeLorean Motor Company, wrote Zemeckis a letter saying, "Thank you for keeping my dream alive in such a beautiful way." Later, body kits were sold so people could make their DeLoreans look like the movie's time machine. The movie's unforgettable clock tower finale wasn't in the original script either. Initially, Marty and Doc were supposed to go to a nuclear test site in Nevada, where an explosion would send the DeLorean back to the future. But the scene was too expensive, so they scrapped it. The now iconic ending, where Doc visits Marty and Jennifer to start a new adventure, was added later. The first draft had the film end with George seeing a 1955 newspaper photo of Marty playing Johnny B. Goode on stage. Believe it or not, the film almost had a completely different title. Universal's president, Sid Sheinberg, hated the name Back to the Future and wanted to change it to Spaceman from Pluto. Thankfully, Spielberg stepped in and sent him a short but powerful note. "Sid, thanks for your hilarious suggestion." We all had a good laugh. Best, Steven Sheinberg never brought it up again, and cinema history was saved. The movie is filled with brilliant foreshadowing and planning. One of the most striking moments comes in the very first scene. When Marty enters Doc's empty lab, the camera slowly pans over clocks, one of which shows a man hanging from the clock hands. This is both a tribute to the silent era classic Safety Last and a clever hint at the film's ending, when Doc hangs from the clock tower. Zemeckis' first choice for Marty McFly was Michael J. Fox, but Fox was starring in the sitcom Family Ties, and the producers wouldn't let him go. So, Zemeckis held auditions with other actors like John Cusack, Charlie Sheen, Ralph Macchio, and Johnny Depp, but none fit. The role went to Eric Stoltz, and filming began. However, something felt off. Leah Thompson recalled that everyone laughed during the first table read. It was funny and full of energy. But after reading, Stoltz said, "Everyone's laughing, but this isn't a comedy. It's a tragedy." 6 weeks later, Zemeckis made one of the toughest decisions of his career. He fired Stoltz. Zemeckis reached out to Family Ties again, and this time, they allowed Fox to read the script. Fox loved it and begged the show's producer, Gary Goldberg, to let him do it. Goldberg agreed on one condition, that Fox keep his TV schedule. So Fox worked on Family Ties from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., then went to the Back to the Future set and filmed until 3 a.m. He slept only 3 hours a night for 2 months. Fox wanted to make sure his guitar playing looked real, so he took lessons from musician Paul Hansen, who was amazed by Fox's dedication. For the singing voice, music supervisor Bones Howe found a young musician named Mark Campbell who sounded almost identical to Fox. It's Campbell's voice you hear during Johnny B. Good. Marty's girlfriend Jennifer was almost played by Melora Hardin, whom you might know as Jan from The Office. But when 5'4" Michael J. Fox replaced Stoltz, the producers thought Hardin looked too tall next to him. She was replaced by Claudia Wells, who had originally been cast but was unavailable before the schedule changed. Christopher Lloyd was suggested for Doc Brown by producer Neil Canton, who had worked with him on the adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. Lloyd initially threw the script away, but after meeting Zemeckis, he changed his mind. Lloyd said he wanted to blend Albert Einstein with orchestra conductor Leopold Stokowski to create the character. Zemeckis loved the idea. Lloyd's famous hunch came from his height. He was 6 feet 1 inch while Fox was 5 feet 4 inches, so he leaned forward during scenes to reduce the difference. He even said later that he'd love to make another Back to the Future where Doc and Marty travel to ancient Rome. Actor Billy Zane, known later from Titanic and Valley of the Wolves, Iraq, started his career in this film as one of Biff's gang members. Hill Valley, the town where Marty lives, looks like a typical American town, but it's actually a movie set called Courthouse Square on Universal Studios' backlot. Built in 1948, it's appeared in many movies, including To Kill a Mockingbird, Gremlins, and Goosebumps 2. The film's visual effects were done by ILM. To create the DeLorean's fiery time travel scene, they drew 2 tire tracks on the ground, filled them with gasoline, and lit them on fire. The flames were filmed and sped up, and lightning and smoke were added digitally later. Crispin Glover, who played George McFly, gave an unforgettable performance but caused tension on set. He wanted his character's hair to stand straight up like an Eraserhead, but Zemeckis refused because it would break continuity. Glover argued, "Brando never cared about continuity," which didn't go over well. Later, he criticized the ending, saying Marty's family becoming rich sent the wrong message, that love, not money, should be the reward. He didn't return for Back to the Future Part 2, and the studio used makeup and old footage to recreate him. Glover sued and won compensation, but his Hollywood career never fully recovered. The film's music was composed by Alan Silvestri, who had previously worked with Zemeckis on Romancing the Stone. Spielberg wasn't sure Silvestri could handle such a grand orchestral score, but once he heard the first rehearsal, he turned to Zemeckis and said, "This is it. This is perfect." The soundtrack also included Huey Lewis and the news hit song The Power of Love, which topped charts worldwide. Lewis even made a cameo as a teacher judging Marty's band at the school audition. Robert Zemeckis was known for bringing out the best in his actors. Michael J. Fox said, "He's an amazing artist. We understood each other perfectly." Leah Thompson said, "His attention to detail makes him a master storyteller." And Tom Wilson joked, "It's like he's got a 100 megabyte hard drive in his head," which in 1985 was impressive. Back to the Future became one of the most beloved films in cinema history. It turned Michael J. Fox into an overnight star, earned 4 Oscar nominations, and grossed $389 million, making it the highest-grossing film of 1985. The rights to the series still belong to Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale. In a 2015 interview, Zemeckis said clearly, "As long as Bob and I are alive, there will never be a remake or reboot of this film." Ladies and gentlemen, that was another video from Scene Diary. Thank you for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. See you in the next one.